Ambassador Zeltan of the Galactic Council adjusted his breathing apparatus with trembling appendages as he floated into the emergency session chamber. The vast circular amphitheater buzzed with anxious energy as representatives from 47 species sat within their specialized environmental pods, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and subsonic rumbles. The massive holographic display at the center cast an ominous blue-green glow across the assembly, showing a small planet orbiting a yellow dwarf star. "Order!" The council speaker's authoritative voice cut through the chaos, the universal translators working overtime to render his words into dozens of languages simultaneously. "We convene this emergency session to address what our xenobiology department has classified as a Code Crimson situation, the human problem." Zeltan's 3 hearts beat in discordant rhythm. 3 standard months had passed since their deep space exploration vessel had intercepted primitive radio transmissions from the 3rd planet of a system the inhabitants called Sol. What began as routine first contact protocols had quickly escalated into the most alarming discovery in the Council's 12,000-year history. Dr. Crixall, the Council's chief xenobiologist, rose from her crystalline pod, her 4 compound eyes reflecting the chamber's dim lighting as they blinked in nervous sequence. Her usually steady voice carried an unmistakable tremor as she activated her personal holodisplay. "Esteemed colleagues, the preliminary biological and environmental assessment of the planet designated Earth by its inhabitants has yielded unprecedented results." She paused, her breathing apparatus cycling rapidly. "This world exhibits a Class 12 danger rating, the highest classification in our database. Not due to advanced weaponry or hostile technology, but purely because of the environmental conditions that shaped its dominant species." A collective intake of breath echoed through the chamber's varied atmospheric systems. "The gravitational field measures 1.34 times our standard norm, enough to crush the exoskeletons of our chitinous friends and liquefy the bone structure of most carbon-based life forms. The atmospheric pressure would implode the breathing cavities of 63% of represented species here today." Dr. Crixall's voice cracked as she continued. "The oxygen concentration reaches 21%, a level that would cause immediate toxic shock to most of our physiology types. But colleagues," she paused dramatically, "that is merely the beginning of this nightmare world." The hologram shifted to show vast blue expanses covering the planet's surface. 71% of the planetary surface is submerged beneath a corrosive solvent that breaks down organic compounds. The natives call this substance water, and, remarkably, her voice dropped to a horrified whisper, they voluntarily submerge their bodies in it, for recreational purposes. The chamber erupted in a symphony of horrified sounds, shrieks, clicks, and warbles of disbelief echoing off the dome's walls as the full implications began to sink in. Captain Vorth of the Hegemony Warfleet's armored carapace clicked nervously against his command throne as he reviewed the classified intelligence reports spread across his bioluminescent displays. His compound eyes processed the data streams with increasing disbelief. These humans had transmitted peaceful greetings across the void, yet every scrap of intercepted information painted them as the most terrifying apex predators the galaxy had ever produced. "Captain," his tactical officer Klexron's voice carried an unusual tremor through the ship's neural communication network, "we've completed our analysis of their entertainment transmissions. The results are deeply disturbing." "Display the findings," Vorth commanded, his mandibles chattering with anticipation. The main holographic projector activated, flooding the bridge with images that sent ripples of horror through the crew. Explosions that could level city blocks, projectile weapons that could pierce starship hulls, massive predatory creatures being systematically hunted for sport. and vehicles accelerating to velocities that would liquefy most known species. They broadcast simulated violence for recreational consumption, sir, Klexron explained, his sensor stalks retracting involuntarily. But observe this data stream. The display shifted to show humans voluntarily leaping from atmospheric vessels, falling through crushing pressure gradients before deploying primitive cloth decelerators at the final moment. They engage in near-death experiences for what their linguistics team translates as enjoyment and thrill-seeking behavior. Vorth's exoskeleton rattled against his restraints. What of their physiological capabilities? "Captain, this intelligence will haunt my sleep cycles," Klexron whispered. "They are persistence predators, evolution's most efficient killing machines. While lacking natural weaponry like claws, venomous sacs, or armored hides, they possess terrifying endurance capabilities. Our xenobiology consultants confirm they can maintain pursuit of prey across continental distances for days without cessation." Another hologram materialized showing human anatomy. Most alarming is their natural combat enhancement system, a chemical they term adrenaline. When threatened or excited, their bodies flood with this substance, temporarily increasing strength by factors of 3 to 5, accelerating reflexes beyond most species' visual tracking ability, and completely suppressing pain receptors. Battle footage suggests some specimens can physically lift ground vehicles during these chemical surges. "By the ancient voids," Vorth breathed, his primary breathing spiracles constricting. "They're biological berserkers." "There's more, Captain. Intelligence indicates they form symbiotic pack bonds not only within their species, but with other apex predators from their world. They've somehow domesticated creatures designated canines and felines, both documented as efficient killers, and integrate them into their family social structures." Vorth stared at the tactical displays, his 3 brains struggling to process the implications. What manner of hellish death world could forge creatures capable of befriending their natural enemies and turning them into willing allies? Dr. Yanish had dedicated her entire career to studying planetary formations across the galaxy, cataloging over 12,000 worlds in her 8 centuries of life. Her crystalline memory matrix contained detailed geological surveys of gas giants that could swallow entire star systems, volcanic hellscapes where molten metal rained from the sky, and frozen wastelands where time itself seemed to crystallize. Yet nothing in her vast experience had prepared her for the sheer malevolent hostility of the planet humans called home. "Esteemed council members," she began, her voice modulator struggling to maintain composure, "I must report that Earth is not merely dangerous, it is actively, persistently attempting to exterminate all life that dares to exist upon its surface." The holographic projector hummed to life, displaying a cutaway view of Earth's internal structure. The planet's crust is fractured into massive tectonic plates that grind against each other in constant, catastrophic motion. These collisions generate what humans euphemistically term earthquakes, seismic disruptions measuring up to 9.5 on their logarithmic scale. To put this in perspective, a magnitude 6.0 event would level our capital city of New Centauri. Dr. Yanish's bioluminescent patches flickered with distress as she continued. "The Pacific Ring of Fire experiences over 400 of these devastating events daily. Yet human settlements dot these regions like festering wounds, with millions of inhabitants conducting their lives mere kilometers from certain destruction." The display shifted to show massive volcanic eruptions, their pyroclastic flows consuming everything in their path. The planet regularly vomits superheated magma and toxic atmospheric contaminants. Geological records indicate a supervolcanic event approximately 74,000 years ago reduced the human population to fewer than 10,000 breeding pairs, a genetic bottleneck that should have driven them extinct. Ambassador Krelock's translator crackled with disbelief. Surely no species could survive such catastrophic population loss. That's precisely what logic dictates, Dr. Yanish replied grimly. Yet humans not only survived, they proliferated across every habitable and uninhabitable landmass on their world. They exhibit what can only be described as pathological adaptability. The hologram cycled through Earth's various climate zones. Rotating atmospheric disturbances they call hurricanes generate wind velocities exceeding 300 kilometers per hour, sufficient to launch debris through starship hulls. Temperature variations range from -60 to +70 degrees Celsius, with humidity levels that would drown air-breathing species and aridity that would desiccate most carbon-based life. Yet humans have established permanent colonies in frozen Arctic wastelands, scorching deserts where water boils instantly, toxic jungles teeming with venomous predators, and even upon the surface of their corrosive oceans, Dr. Yanish concluded, her voice hollow with horror. They don't merely survive these conditions, they call them home. Dr. Menderoth, the Galactic Council's preeminent behavioral psychologist and neural pattern analyst, had devoted 3 standard months to studying intercepted human communications, behavioral recordings, and psychological data streams. His mental equilibrium, finely tuned through centuries of analyzing the most aberrant species across 47 worlds, now teetered on the edge of complete cognitive breakdown. Distinguished colleagues, sentient entities, and respected consciousness manifestations, he began, his telepathic emanations wavering with barely contained panic. I must report that human psychological architecture defies every established principle of sapient behavioral evolution. They exhibit mental patterns that, by all known psychological models, should result in immediate species extinction rather than galactic expansion. His neural interface activated the presentation matrix, flooding the chamber with holographic data clusters. Primary observation: humans actively seek life-threatening situations for neurochemical stimulation. We have documented extensive evidence of voluntary participation in activities they classify as extreme sports: aerial descent from atmospheric heights, vertical ascension of geological formations without safety apparatus, high-velocity vehicular competitions, and recreational proximity to apex predators. Ambassador Telquani's translation matrix crackled with confusion. Surely this indicates terminal psychological dysfunction, a species-wide death wish? That was our initial hypothesis, Dr. Menderoth replied, his consciousness probes flickering erratically. However, comprehensive analysis reveals the opposite. Risk-seeking behavior correlates directly with improved mental health indicators, enhanced social bonding, and increased reproductive success. They literally require danger to achieve optimal psychological function. The display shifted to show trauma response patterns. Second aberration: their neural adaptation to severe psychological stress. Standard galactic psychology dictates that extreme trauma should result in permanent cognitive damage, social withdrawal, and reduced survival capabilities. Human subjects demonstrate the opposite, a phenomenon they term post-traumatic growth. "Impossible," gasped Dr. Yilmoth, her empathic tendrils recoiling in horror. "Trauma should weaken mental structures, not strengthen them." Yet humans possess a cultural axiom that translates to "what does not kill you makes you stronger." Dr. Menderoth continued, his voice becoming increasingly strained. Their behavioral patterns support this belief. They actively seek increasingly challenging situations after surviving previous hardships. Most disturbing of all, he concluded with a mental tremor that resonated through every psychic-sensitive being in the chamber, they form profound emotional attachments to virtually everything: offspring, mates, inanimate objects, abstract concepts, even members of other species. They will engage in suicidal combat to protect these attachments without hesitation. They also exhibit a psychological trait they call spite. When informed that a goal is impossible, their immediate response is to prove the statement incorrect through sheer determination. This defiance of logical limitation has enabled them to accomplish feats that violate known physical and mathematical constraints. The council sat in stunned silence, finally comprehending that humans weren't merely physically dangerous, they were psychologically unpredictable in ways that threatened the very concept of rational behavior. Admiral Zorkson's exoskeleton plates shifted nervously as he conducted his final tactical briefing before the Galactic Council's diplomatic fleet entered the Sol system. His thousand-year military career had taken him through 17 different war zones, three-dimensional rifts, and countless hostile first contacts, yet none had required the elaborate safety protocols now displayed across his command chamber's neural matrices. "Crew members, listen carefully," he addressed his multi-species staff through the ship's bio-neural communication network, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "We are about to encounter the most psychologically dangerous species in recorded galactic history. These humans are not necessarily hostile, but they are unpredictably lethal in ways our combat simulations cannot adequately model." Lieutenant Kekstar, his communications officer, raised a confused sensor stalk. "Sir, our xenobiology reports indicate humans are physically inferior to most Council species. Standard bipedal form, no natural armor plating, fragile calcium-based skeletal structure, and minimal bite force. Surely our standard diplomatic protocols would suffice?" Admiral Zorkson's mandibles clicked ominously. "Lieutenant, that apparent weakness is precisely what makes them terrifying. They have compensated for physical limitations through technological innovation and psychological adaptation that borders on the supernatural. Every human settlement functions as a distributed weapons manufacturing facility." His tactical display illuminated with horrifying efficiency analyses. "They possess ground vehicles capable of exceeding atmospheric entry velocities, any of which could be weaponized as kinetic projectiles. Their industrial infrastructure produces controlled explosive compounds for construction and resource extraction that could level our capital cities. Even their recreational activities involve competitive strategy simulations, projectile-based games, and full-contact combat sports." The sensor array chimed with an incoming transmission. "Sir," Lieutenant Kekstar reported, his bioluminescent patches flickering with alarm, "we are receiving a communication from the human vessel." "Display it immediately," Admiral Zorkson commanded, his three hearts synchronizing into combat rhythm. The main holographic projector activated, revealing a human female wearing what appeared to be a military uniform. When she smiled, a facial expression that exposed her omnivorous dental configuration, every crew member's natural predator detection instincts screamed warnings. "Greetings, friends," she said with apparent genuine enthusiasm, her voice carrying undertones that suggested barely contained excitement. "I'm Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We've been monitoring your approach and we're absolutely thrilled to finally meet you. Would you like to dock with our orbital station for a welcome feast? Our culinary teams have been working around the clock preparing traditional dishes." Admiral Zorkson's blood chemistry shifted into emergency mode. These humans wanted to conduct feeding rituals on their own territory, where they controlled every environmental variable. They had somehow intercepted the fleet's approach vector and prepared in advance. "That's most generous, Commander Chen," he replied with careful diplomatic precision, "but our species have very specific dietary requirements that might be difficult to accommodate." "No worries at all." Commander Chen's smile widened, revealing more of her predatory dentition. "We've already analyzed the biological data for all 47 Council species and designed appropriate nutritional solutions. Our xenobiology department has been looking forward to this cultural exchange for months." Admiral Zorkson realized with growing existential dread that humans had somehow acquired comprehensive intelligence about every member species of the Galactic Council before formal diplomatic contact had even been established. These creatures were not just physically dangerous, they were intelligence-gathering predators operating on a level that defied conventional military understanding. "Greetings, friends," she said with apparent genuine enthusiasm, her voice carrying undertones that suggested barely contained excitement. "I'm Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We've been monitoring your approach and we're absolutely thrilled to finally meet you. Would you like to dock with our orbital station for a welcome feast? Our culinary teams have been working around the clock preparing traditional dishes." Admiral Zorkson's blood chemistry shifted into emergency mode. These humans wanted to conduct feeding rituals on their own territory, where they controlled every environmental variable. They had somehow intercepted the fleet's approach vector and prepared in advance. "That's most generous, Commander Chen," he replied with careful diplomatic precision, "but our species have very specific dietary requirements that might be difficult to accommodate." "No worries at all," Commander Chen's smile widened, revealing more of her predatory dentition. "We've already analyzed the biological data for all 47 Council species and designed appropriate nutritional solutions. Our xenobiology department has been looking forward to this cultural exchange for months." Admiral Zorkson realized with growing existential dread that humans had somehow acquired comprehensive intelligence about every member species of the Galactic Council before formal diplomatic contact had even been established. These creatures were not just physically dangerous, they were intelligence-gathering predators operating on a level that defied conventional military understanding. The Joint Human-Alien Cultural Exchange Program was proceeding in ways that defied every prediction model the Galactic Council's behavioral analysts had developed. Ambassador Zelton floated within his mobile atmospheric suit, watching in a mixture of fascination and existential terror as human younglings engaged in recreational activities that would qualify as advanced combat training on most civilized worlds. "This is Rex," announced 8-year-old Emma with infectious enthusiasm, hoisting a creature that Ambassador Zelton's threat assessment matrix immediately classified as a Class 7 apex predator. The beast possessed massive crushing mandibles lined with serrated bone weapons, powerful locomotion appendages, and predatory optical sensors that tracked movement with mechanical precision. "He's the bestest boy in the whole universe! Want to pet him? He loves making new friends!" Zelton's emergency life support systems activated involuntarily as his translator provided additional context. This Rex was a selectively bred descendant of Earth's most efficient land-based predators, genetically modified for enhanced loyalty but retaining all ancestral hunting instincts. The juvenile human was treating a killing machine as a companion organism. "We call them dogs," explained Dr. Sarah Martinez, the human xenobiologist assigned to facilitate interspecies understanding, her casual demeanor suggesting she found nothing unusual about the situation. "They've been our evolutionary partners for approximately 35,000 Earth years. We domesticated them from wolves, pack hunters that could easily kill adult humans in single combat." "You deliberately formed symbiotic relationships with your natural predators?" Zelton asked, his voice modulator struggling to process the concept. "Well, obviously," Dr. Martinez replied, as if explaining basic mathematics to a particularly slow student. "They're incredibly useful for hunting, protection, and emotional support. Plus, they're adorable. Come meet our cats. You'll love them." In the adjacent observation chamber, Zelton witnessed humans cohabitating with creatures that his biological databases identified as ambush predators, specialized in stalking, pouncing, and delivering precision strikes to vital organs. The cats would demonstrate these hunting behaviors repeatedly throughout the day, yet the humans interpreted these potentially lethal actions as playful and entertaining. Dr. Martinez, Zelton said carefully, his cognitive processors working overtime to comprehend the implications, your species appears to have developed mutualistic relationships with multiple apex predators from your homeworld. Sure, she replied with a casual shrug that somehow conveyed both pride and confusion at his surprise. They're family. Humans don't really function well in isolation. We're pack animals ourselves. We need social bonds with other species to maintain optimal psychological health. But they represent significant personal danger. Dr. Martinez looked genuinely puzzled by his concern. Everything's dangerous if you think about it long enough. That's what makes life interesting and worth living. Besides, the most dangerous things usually end up being the most rewarding once you figure out how to work with them instead of against them. It was at that precise moment that Ambassador Zelton experienced what humans might call an epiphany. These creatures weren't dangerous despite their Death World origins. They were dangerous because their Death World had taught them to transform threats into allies, obstacles into opportunities, and impossibilities into inevitable victories. 6 months after first contact, the Galactic Council convened within the Great Assembly Chamber for the most significant policy revision in their 12,000-year history. The massive crystalline dome pulsed with bioluminescent patterns as representatives from 47 species processed information that fundamentally challenged every assumption about interstellar civilization and the nature of intelligent life itself. Council Speaker Mordun's ancient voice resonated through the chamber's neural amplification matrix, carrying the weight of profound transformation. Esteemed colleagues, we gather today to formally acknowledge that our understanding of humanity and their homeworld requires complete paradigmatic restructuring. While Earth remains classified as the most lethally dangerous planet in our galactic database, humans have demonstrated capabilities that transcend our previous threat assessments. Ambassador Zelton rose from his environmental pod, his biomechanical appendages still trembling slightly from his extended exposure to human society. Distinguished council members, in the preceding 6 standard months, these remarkable beings have accomplished what our combined civilizations deemed impossible across multiple scientific disciplines. They have resolved 17 engineering paradoxes that had plagued our species for millennia, synthesized pharmaceutical compounds that eliminated 12 previously incurable diseases, and volunteered for every hazardous assignment the Council required completion. More significantly, Admiral Zorkson interjected, his combat experience lending gravity to his words. They have single-handedly neutralized the Kythera Pirate Confederation through tactics we never conceived possible. These humans accomplished something our combined military forces considered logistically impossible. They conducted boarding actions during active space combat, engaging in hand-to-hand combat within the vacuum of space itself. Dr. Crixal activated her research displays, her 4 eyes reflecting data streams with newfound respect rather than horror. Perhaps most remarkably, humans have initiated what they term terraforming operations on previously uninhabitable worlds. Planets our surveys classified as permanently hostile to life are being systematically transformed into garden worlds suitable for multiple species colonization. They are literally rewriting the fundamental laws of planetary habitability. Junior Council member Yexti raised a tentative question through his translation matrix. Surely this unprecedented capability makes them exponentially more dangerous to galactic stability. Council Speaker Mordun's expression shifted to what humans might recognize as contemplative wisdom. An astute observation, Councilmember Yexti. Humans are indeed the most dangerous species we have encountered in our exploration of the galaxy. They possess the capability to survive anywhere, adapt to any challenge, and overcome obstacles through sheer determination and innovative problem-solving that borders on miraculous. However, he continued with deliberate emphasis, our extensive cultural analysis indicates they direct this danger exclusively toward threats and challenges. To allies, friends, and those they consider worthy of protection, they demonstrate unprecedented loyalty and generosity. They possess a cultural axiom that translates roughly to, a human will fight the universe itself to protect what they care about. The fundamental question confronting this council is not how to contain humanity's dangerous capabilities, but rather how to ensure they consider our civilizations worthy of their protection and partnership. Ambassador Zelton's translator conveyed what could only be described as a smile, a gesture he had learned from his human contacts. I formally propose we redesignate Earth's classification. Yes, it remains the most dangerous planet in our galaxy. However, given recent developments, I believe that may be precisely what our galaxy requires for long-term stability and growth. All council members in favor of granting humanity full membership status with all associated rights and responsibilities? The vote was unanimous, accompanied by what sounded remarkably like relieved sighs across 47 different respiratory systems. As the session concluded, Ambassador Zelton reflected on humanity's transformative impact. In just 6 months, they had evolved from a potential existential threat into the galaxy's most formidable protectors. They remained the most dangerous species anyone had encountered, dangerous to enemies, obstacles, and the very concept of impossibility itself. The galaxy was immeasurably safer for their presence.